Let me begin talking about emotional maturity by reading a short passage from the book, The Hero's Choice, Leading from the Inside Out. Hal hated Charlie, everything about him, from his knowing sneer to his rolling swagger. When he saw him enter the restaurant with Keith, he wished fervently he could get away and considered getting up and walking out of the breakfast meeting without a word to either of his two former partners. But then he garnered his faculties and he decided to accept this new reality. He would choose how to respond, and his choice would be to be cordial and cooperative. He felt a surge of strength as he realized that handling himself in a dignified manner with both these men would be a bigger personal victory than if he met with Keith alone. Well, this passage gives you a little bit of insight into emotional maturity. Hal's immediate reaction was to simply act out his negative emotions, but instead he made a decision to respond in a more positive, or we could say emotionally mature way. Notice how that decision resulted in a shift in his emotional energy. Well, I define emotional maturity as the ability to make good, positive, healthy choices during the challenges of life. Here's a chart that illustrates some of the differences in the mindset of someone who's acting emotionally immature versus mature. Notice how when immature, we are reactive, believing that life happens to us. When emotionally mature, on the other hand, we're proactive and recognize we don't have to react. We can make choices. When immature, I act out my emotions. When mature, I act on my emotions. When immature, I'm governed by habit. When mature, I'm governed by my vision, my purpose. When immature, I act from fear and scarcity. When mature, I act from love and abundance. When immature, I'm motivated by have to. When mature, by choose to. When immature, I get, I seek what other people can give me. I tend to be self-centered. When mature, I'm more giving. I'm other-centered. When immature, I seek security and self-protection. In maturity, I step outside of my comfort zone to take new risks. When immature, I seek to avoid failure, rejection, and discomfort. When mature, I seek growth. When immature, I feel alienated and separate from other people. When mature, I feel unity and goodwill. When immature, I live in the past or the future. When mature, I live in the present. Understanding these distinctions, I want to introduce a concept that I call a key moment. Key moments are difficult, upsetting events. These are events that trigger strong emotions inside of us, and so it's so easy to become defensive or reactive, to slip into immature ways of responding. And the truth is, we experience key moments every day. Some are relatively minor, like a child knocking over a glass of milk. But others are quite threatening, watching a child flounder or perhaps losing a job. Consciously or unconsciously, we make choices during our key moments, and the quality of our lives is determined by these choices. If we make good, strengthening choices, we grow in confidence, personal effectiveness, and enjoyable relationships, what I call emotional maturity. When we make poor choices, we become less effective, eventually feeling like nothing more than a pawn of the circumstances of life, which is how I would define emotional immaturity. However, making good choices isn't easy. In fact, Hal, from the incident that I read to you, couldn't sustain his intent to be cordial and cooperative. He totally lost his composure when his former partners threatened him with a lawsuit. Well, eventually, Hal regained his bearings and he learned to respond positively to such key moments, but not before sinking into a morass of self-pity and vengeance. I'm going to suggest that our key moments are how we develop emotional maturity. We don't become more mature when the waters of life are calm and placid and everything is going our way. We grow in maturity in turbulent, choppy waters when tempted to act out our fears, hurts, or resentments. So the question is, how do we develop emotional maturity? And I want to suggest to you 5 steps to go through when you face key moments in your life. In fact, you might consider a recent key moment, and then apply the 5 steps that I'm about to share with you to your situation. I know that it's not easy. At first, it's like learning any new skill, but as you practice, you'll get better. You'll gradually become more emotionally mature, living on the right hand of that column rather than on the left hand of the chart that I shared with you. So step number 1 is to be present, to be conscious. You're going to be able to respond to your key moments if you're not asleep at the wheel. You have to wake up and become fully conscious and present to what's happening both within and around you. If not alert and aware, you'll quickly slip into old, habitual, negative ways of reacting. Now, I want to say that being present does not make responding easy, but it does put you in the driver's seat. It makes it possible. So thinking about your own key moment, what was the triggering event? And what specifically about that event triggered your reaction? And what were your thoughts, your feelings? And what would you do? Or I should say, what did you do? And what were the consequences? By being present, you begin to take your power back. In fact, you realize that only can you be present in this moment. This moment is all you have. When can you be happy or miserable for that matter? And when can you be confident, or when can you make choices? It all happens in this moment, not in the past, not in the future. Being present to this moment is the gateway to change and emotional maturity. Step 2 is embrace reality. Reality is what is, or the way things are. Reality exists independently of your opinions about it. Embrace reality and find peace. Resist it and experience pain and frustration. Now, some of your realities you chose, your career, who you married, but others were thrust upon you by your heritage, let's say your stature, your height, and your age, or other factors that are outside of your control. Nevertheless, these realities form the boundaries or the parameters in which you live and make choices daily. This isn't to say you can't change some realities. Some you can, some you can't. But at this moment, by the way, which is the only moment that is real, what is. And to be happy and effective, you must acknowledge and respect rather than fight against the realities of your life. Denying, avoiding, complaining, or refusing to think about uncomfortable realities gives those very things incredible power over your life. For example, if you're worried about your finances, sit down and take stock of exactly where you are, how much you owe, exactly how you'll pay it off. Is that fun? No. Is it uncomfortable? Certainly. But by taking ownership of the reality, you've now equipped yourself to change it. And do the same thing with any reality that you've been resisting or avoiding. Step number 3, exercise responsibility. Responsibility has to do with the choices that you make about how to think and feel and act about reality. The quality of your life depends on your ability to make good choices, choices consistent with your best self and long-term interest, in spite of what happens to you. Your personal experience and your results, the results that you get in life, are influenced but not determined by circumstances, events, and other people. Between an event and your response is a moment, however fleeting, when you decide whether to surrender control and react automatically, or to interrupt a negative pattern and search out a response more in alignment with your long-term self-interest. So again, think about your key moment. What choices did you make? What were the consequences? What other choices might you have made? And how would they have led to a different outcome? Let me move on to step 4. Step 4 is clarify your vision. What do you really want? What is most important to you? Being clear about your vision gives you the motivation or the incentive to make good choices when in a key moment. It's so easy to follow the path of least resistance or act out your negative emotions. But if you've thought about what you really want, if you have a clear vision of the outcomes you desire for yourself and your relationships, it becomes easier to delay immediate gratification and exercise the discipline to make positive and strengthening choices. A clear vision allows you to be ruled by something other than impulse and circumstance. Define what you want. Deepen it so it becomes more important than what you are currently getting. Step 5. Act from integrity. This is where the rubber meets the road. No giving yourself excuses, no whining. Acting from integrity is bringing what you say and do into alignment with what you really want. It's acting consistently with your higher vision. It's living by commitment rather than ease, discipline rather than convenience. Acting from integrity requires that you give up short-term payoffs, meaning immediate gratification or escape or avoidance or self-indulgence or even revenge for something that's bigger and more fulfilling to you in the long run. It requires that you pay a price, the price of delaying gratification, quieting your tongue, facing a problem, entering into a difficult conversation. The price you pay is like your admission into the world of emotional maturity. You've earned it. So consider your key moment. What new choices could you make? What new actions would you be willing to take? Things won't magically change. You change them by making new choices and behaving in a new way. Well, Hal faced one key moment after another, kind of like all of us. And initially, he didn't handle them very well. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted others to change. But gradually, he learned better ways of responding. He grew up. He became emotionally mature. In fact, let me share with you another passage from The Hero's Choice, if I could, that illustrates this. By the way, Hal, Janine, who was Hal's former secretary, said to him, "You really impressed the partners by the way you handled yourself at the board meeting. They don't talk about anything else. They've actually stopped referring to you as Mr. Cowboy." Hal chuckled, and here I thought I was the Lone Ranger. Janine, "Well, anyway, I was sure after the meeting they would drop the lawsuit. So I was really surprised when I heard you had been served papers. The only explanation is that Charlie harangued them into going forward. That man." "He did what he thought he had to do," replied Hal. "Don't you go being magnanimous. It makes me feel ashamed to be angry, and I want to be angry." Well, Hal went back to his work, but thoughts of Charlie kept intruding. He had plenty to hold against the man. Charlie had turned his partners against him, cost him his job, stolen his dream. He was lowballing Hal out of ownership in the company, which also affected his family. Still, he wasn't angry. Unlike Janine, he didn't even want to be angry. Well, Hal gradually learned new ways of responding to his key moments. And all of us are able to learn better ways of responding. It wasn't easy for Hal, but gradually and over time, he changed how he reacted to events. And rather than simply react, he learned to respond in positive and healthy ways. And as he did so, he matured. Well, I want to say, it doesn't really matter who you are or how mature or immature you are today. You can also become less reactive and more emotionally mature as you learn the principles and skills to do so. So let me invite you to scroll down to the bottom of this page in this article where I offer a few options to support you in this journey. You can read The Hero's Choice. You can get a big discount on my ebook, How to Become Emotionally Mature, and or sign up for my newsletter. Thank you for visiting this page.